Progress check 2.2. Percentages and rates of change. Question number 1. What percentage of the grid is shaded? So we're looking at the shaded squares or half squares, and we'll try to count them. So we've got one full square here, and another one, another one, and another one. So that makes 4. This and this can make 1 together, so that brings the number to 5, and this can make 1 together to make it 6. So 6 out of 20 squares in total, which is the same as 3 out of 10 by dividing both of them by 2, and 3 out of 10 is 0.3, which is equal to 30%. So 30% of the squares are shaded. In the next question, we've got write 45% as a decimal. To convert percentages to decimals, we can divide by 100. The other way to look at it, when you say 45%, is like 45 pence in a pound. So we write 45 pence as 0.45, and that is what 45% is as a decimal. Question number 3, we have write 65% as a fraction in its simplest form. So 65% is 65 out of 100, because percent means out of 100. So we can simplify this further, and I can see that I can divide both of these two numbers by 5. So this becomes 13 out of 20. And 13 is a prime number, so we can't go any further. We know that prime numbers can only be divided by themselves and by 1. And this is what the simplest form of 65% is. In question number 4, we've got to work out 17.5% of 960. So with the calculator, that is straightforward. 17.5%, which means out of 100 of the 960. So we just multiply it by 960, which is also the same as doing 0.175, which is the answer when you divide 17.5 by 100 times by 960, and that is with a calculator, that is 168 pounds. In question number 5, we've got a computer costs £510 plus VAT at 20%. Work out the total cost of the computer. So if I try to represent the original price of the computer, which is £510, so that is the 100%. Then VAT is added on top, which is 20% of this. So this would be the same 20% as any 20% within the 100. So if I split this into 5, it'd give me 20%. So an extra 20% on top. So just working out 20% of 510, which is 102. As we said before, without a calculator, you could just divide 510 by 5 to give you 102, which is equal to 20%. Now what we do to work out the total cost of the computer, we add 510 with 102, 216 to make this 612. Next question, we have a car is usually priced at £16,800 but now has a discount of 8%. What is the new price of the car? So again, we'll try to represent this. We've got the 100% price being 16,800 and there is a discount of 8%. So what we're left with is 92%. And we need to work that out. What's that 92% equal to? You could have also worked out 8% and then take it away from the 100%, which is going to leave you with 92%. But working out 92% is the shortest way. So to get 92% of 16,800, I would either go 92 out of 100, which is divided by 100, of 16,800, which is multiplying by the number. And that gives me £15,456. And if you didn't have access to a calculator, you could have worked out 10% of the amount. So 10% of 16,800 is equal to 1,680. Then take away the 2%. So 1% of this is 168 and another 1% is 168. To get 2%, you just add these two together. So 8 and 8, 16. 1 carried over. So we've got 6 and 6, 12. And the 1 is 13. And 1 is carried over. So 336. 2% is equal to 336. Taking it away from the 10% to get 8. So 10% was 1,680. Take away the 336. That gives us 4 here. 7 take away 3 is 4. 6 take away 3 is 3. And then 1. So that is the 8%. Now, to get the 92% that are remaining, we get 16800. Take away 1,344. So we haven't got enough units to take away 4 from, so we're going to have to borrow. From the tens we can't because it's a 0, so we're going to borrow 1 from the hundreds to make this a 7 now. So that gives 10 to the tens. So the units can borrow from the tens to make it a 9, and this becomes a 10. 10 take away 4 is 6. 9 take away 4 is 5. 7 take away 3 is 4. 6 take away 1 is 5. And the 1. So 15,456 without a calculator as well. Sarah sat a science test and got a score of 84 marks out of 110 possible marks. What was her mark as a percentage? Give your answer to 1 decimal place. So we know how many marks Sarah got, which was 84, and that was out of 110, the total, the possible, total possible. So what we're going to do now, as the fraction suggests, we go 84 divided by 110. So that is equal to 0.0 763 recurring. So this means that this is the same as 0.7636363, only the 6 and 3 recur. So this continues. Now we need to write this as a percentage given an answer to one decimal place. So when we convert a decimal to a percentage, we multiply it by 100. So the answer becomes 76.3636 and so on. So rounding this to one decimal place, meaning one digit after the decimal point. So looking at the 6 is 5 or higher, so we're going to give the 3 one extra to make this 76.4, and that should be the answer to one decimal place. If you didn't have access to a calculator, then you'd go 84 out of 110, simplify it to give us 42 out of 55. So that is easier to divide, and then you go through the same process as we've just shown. The next question is asking, Keith buys a house for £300,000 and sells it 2 years later for £350,000. What is his percentage profit? So we've got the original price of the house being lower. So if I represent that, the 100% amount being 300,000, and then there's been an increase, which means that the price of the house has gone to £350,000. Now, what is the profit? We can see that the profit is this extension here, the extra amount, and that is 50,000, which is the difference between 350,000 and £300,000. So that profit now is 50,000 out of the original 100% amount, which was 300,000. This with a calculator, so dividing 50,000 by 300,000, or if you don't have a calculator, then you can simplify this, dividing by 10 both the top and the bottom numbers. You'd have this, so the other two zeros cancelled out if you divide again by 10, and again and again. So we end up with 5 out of 30, or 5 divided by 30, which again we can divide by 5 to give us 1 over 6. So 1 divided by 6 gives us 0.16, so 6 is recurring. Now, with 6 recurring, that means that we have 0.1666 and so on. We've got to write this as a percentage, and to turn this into a percentage, we multiply by 100. So moving the decimal point 2 places means that we get 16.67% to 2 decimal places. Now looking at the next question, we've got in a sale, normal prices are reduced by 15%. The sale price of a DVD recorder is £119. Calculate the normal price of the DVD recorder. We're trying to represent the normal price using a bar. So there we have the original or normal price, and we've had a reduction in price by 15%. So what is left now is 85%, which is equal to £119. Now what we're interested in is the original, or 100%. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to divide 119 by 85, because that's what this is equal to. I can't divide it by 100 because it's not worth 100%. And if I divide it by 100, it's going to give me just 1% of 119, not 1% of the original price. So I'm going to go 119 divided by 85, which gives me 1.4. So that suggests that 1% is equal to £1.40. What I'm interested in now is the 100%. So 100%, we get that by multiplying the 1% by 100. So 1.40 times 100 means we've moved the decimal 0.2 places to give us £140. And that's the original amount and the answer. We now have Dan has £5,000 in his savings account. This account pays 2.5% interest per year. How much interest will he earn in 8 years? So we've got key pieces of information which we can underline. So we've got £5,000, 2.5%, and 8 years. Now, this is not saying that it's compound interest, so we can assume it's simple interest. We have the original amount, or the investment, the initial investment, which is £5,000. So he's paid a little bit extra every year, and that amount is the same throughout. So that means that there's going to be next year another amount which is the same, the 2.5, another 2.5%, another 2.5%, another 2.5. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lots of them, which are exactly the same. So 2.5%, if you multiply that by 8, is going to give us 20. So 20% in total. So what is 20% of 5,000? And you can find 20% in a range of ways. The one that I've chosen is by dividing it by 5, because there are 5 20% in 100. So we get 5,000 divided by 5 gives us £1,000. So that is the interest that he's going to earn in 8 years. France goes on holiday to France. The exchange rate is £1 to 1.15 euros, or equal to 1.15 euros. He changes £400 into euros. How many euros should he get? So we've got a ratio of 1 to 1.15. 1 is the pound and 1.15 is the euros. So he's going to exchange £400. So we'll put that in the pounds column. And how many euros will he get? Now there are different ways you could work it out, but I just prefer this way. To get from 1 to 400, what do we do? What do we multiply it by? And that is 400. So we'll do the same on the other side. So times 400. So 1 1.15 times 400 gives us 460. Another way to do it would have been like we explained in an earlier example. So multiply the two numbers diagonally and then divide by whatever is left. So that's the one. So we'd go again 1.15 times 400 divided by 1 would give us the same answer, which is £460.